How's it going, you guys? Welcome to your morning cup. We start today off with something that we need to talk about, and that is the Israel-Palestine conflict, as things are just getting a little too heated to not talk about things, and an update is required to the previous stories that we covered. So over 38,000 Palestinians have now been displaced in the conflict that is occurring between Israel and Palestine, specifically in the Gaza Strip. What we understand is more than 2,500 people have been made homeless. A United Nations spokesperson, Stefan Dujarric, said that the displaced people have sought protection in 48 schools run by the UNRWA. What we also understand is the fact that the program has started providing emergency assistance for more than 51,000 people, and this is all outfall of the fighting ensuing. This is by no means anywhere near the total number of people that are going to be affected by this, regional conflict. It's going to escalate, and it's going to escalate rather quickly, and if we aren't aware of how quickly it can escalate, it might lead to more treacherous things than we can comprehend. We have to also talk about the fact that an Israeli airstrike has damaged the Gaza Strip's only COVID-19 testing lab. Now, this is exactly what I'm talking about. Strategic weapon deployment or strategically targeting buildings and such is fine, but if you start targeting medical facilities, if you start targeting COVID-19 testing labs, how does that make sense? The Israeli strikes, according to the local authorities, threatens to undermine the efforts of the health ministry to face the COVID pandemic. The conflict between Palestinian militants and Israel has broken out and has taken up a whole new steam, if you ask me. You see, no more COVID-19 tests can be done on the Gaza Strip because of this specific incident. What does that ascertain towards? That ascertains towards a whole new health warning when it comes to the pandemic. People in the Gaza Strip can no longer get tested, thereby contaminated people or infected people, if you will, can no longer get a diagnosis done, thereby making them more susceptible to the virus in the first place. Spreading of this virus is going to get 10 times worse because people don't have access to the testing facilities, and they will not know whether they are either positive or not, whether they're supposed to self-isolate or not. And considering now that the biggest thing that is on their heads is not the pandemic but a bomb being dropped on their building, making their entire building collapse or something similar to that, we can understand that these people have something bigger to fear than the pandemic as of now. And then the other side. I don't know what to say about this. Israel tweets a number of rocket emojis counting the airstrikes that have happened against them. I don't understand this. Israel is criticized for posting a series of tweets containing rocket emojis and saying that these are the total amount of rockets that are shot at the Israeli civilians. And there was massive backlash on this, as you can possibly expect. People went as far as to say that I made a similar tweet with the number of kids that you've killed with your strikes, would you like me to share that? And the other one just said that it is really pathetic that Israel has now resorted to posting such emojis in times of such international distress and outcry for human rights violations, and the sheer and blatant disregard for the collateral damage that is actual human lives being displaced left, right and center. Now, Emmanuel Macron, France's Prime Minister, has gone out of his way to put out a statement that he is going to be working with Egypt and Jordanian leaders in the coming days on a concrete proposal so that the Israel-Gaza ceasefire can be procured. He says that for him, there needs to be a quick process for ceasefire as quickly as possible, and construction of this ceasefire needs to be going through a path of discussions between the different protagonists, that is Israel and Palestine. He says that he is going to be willing, with a few more nations in the region, to make these both parties sit down together on the same table and talk it out so that this ceasefire can finally be procured. But is it too little too late, is the question. Of course, a ceasefire is required. People don't want people to lose their assets, their homes, have their lives threatened. Kids don't understand what to do, what to be like anymore because, literal hell is raining from the skies. How do you explain that? Can you explain that? Is it justified no matter what you and I might think? The bottom line still is the bottom line, being that if a peace agreement is not procured, no matter how it is procured, the consequences are going to be way more dire, and not just for the countries in the region but for the rest of the world, because Israel is a nuclear capable nation. and Hamas is very well aware of that. And by talking about nuclear things, let's just go out of our way and talk about the Trinity Side thing as well. Now, a newly discovered quasi-crystal was created by the first nuclear explosion at the Trinity Side, Los Alamos International Laboratory. And no, we're not going to be talking about the aliens, but yes, it is the same lab as the aliens. This new quasi-crystal is now the oldest known human-made quasi-crystal with an unmistakable timestamp. This material was formed accidentally during the blast, which resulted in the fusion of the surrounding sand, the testing tower, and the copper transmission lines that were laid down. So unique material under intensive heat, under intensive pressure, and a ton of other variables created a quasi-crystal that is one in a literal million. Well, more if you ask me. That's a fact. Now, Amazon is actually in talks of acquiring the legendary Roaring Lion. Now, what I mean by the legendary Roaring Lion is the fact that you all remember a picture of a Roaring Lion coming on before a movie would start, and that is MGM Studios. And turns out that Amazon might just buy MGM Studios for $9 billion. What we understand is the fact that this would make all 4,000 films, including the James Bond and Rocky franchises, and 17,000 hours of TV programming, all back into Amazon's prime streaming facilities. MGM Holdings also has reportedly been exploring a sale for a long time now. And this move by Amazon to procure MGM might just be the next thing that they need to intensify the prime competition basis when it comes to Netflix, Hulu, HBO Max, Disney Plus, and all that jargon. If Prime needs to stand a chance and compete in the market for the OTT platforms, this is a very good move on their end. And that has to be acknowledged whether you like MGM or you don't.